Veegilants, it's another beautiful day and I'm thrilled to have you here again. First and foremost, I want to thank you for always tuning in. We appreciate and love you so much. Now, I'm talking about myself and the ladies who love you so much. And as I mentioned last week, this week's episode is going to be both exciting and insightful, and I can't wait to share our discussion with you. Today, we're diving into a very educative and inspiring topic, the parental effect on established institution. Now, we're focusing on the marital aspect and we're focusing on academics too. I'm your host, Olaiton Babatunde. And as always, I have with me the ever amazing, beautiful, very demure, very mindful ladies, Precious and Grace. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Now, I actually want the energy to be up there. I think I'm not getting that energy from you guys. Yeah, so I'm saying again, good afternoon, guys.
Good afternoon.
No, the energy is low today because we are all passing through.
Oh, what are you passing through?
The economy is enough.
The cost of living is actually
to dampen the demure and the steeze and the composition
that you have. Before we started, we're singing. We're trying to call on to our president, to at least listen to us and do something about the whole thing that is going on in the country presently. Now, last week, you both shared your experience growing up about how your parents, the way they took care of you, the training aspect.
After that episode, I just hope my parents are not hearing.
Fear no allow me send them that link.
Okay.
My mommy, they will hear everything.
Okay, and I think I asked that who is responsible for raising a child, the parent or the society? Precious, you believe that it is solely the parent that is in charge of training the child, while on the other hand, Grace felt like it is the society and the parent doing the thing.
Collaboration.
Yeah, at the same time. And we also looked at the story of Lawrence Anini, and this is where I was talking about how the mother tried putting effort to stop all his evil activities, but on the contrary, the society, prayer, and also his choice, the decision he made, it affected what he later became in life, and all of that. We also touched on the issue of parents projecting their lives on their children. So because I wanted to become a medical doctor and I couldn't achieve that dream, I want you to do it for me. And because of that, they forced their dreams on their child. We talked about how it affects the child and then they become rebellious. As promised last week, we said we're going to bring in experienced professionals who are going to, talk about it and offer their insight on the parental effect on established institutions. Now, we're majorly focusing on the academics and the marital aspect. Okay. Today in the studio, we have with us a renowned communication and public relation professional. She has worked at the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, the Institute of Chartered Accountants, also at the SGBN Bank. Also, she's a marriage counselor and so a mother. Above all, she's a mother. We're talking about no one other than Mrs. Ekaete Odiawa. Good afternoon, Ma.
Good afternoon. Nice to have me. Thank you.
Yes, Ma, we're glad to have you here, Ma. And also with us, we have Dr. Samuel Ogunjobi, a lecturer at Federal University Oye Ekiti, a technical analyst, writer, and a public speaker. Good afternoon, sir. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
All right. It's our pleasure. We're happy you granted us the audience to be here this afternoon. Like I said last week, we talked about parental effect on moral decadence. That was what we focused on. We've seen how children out there, they're rebellious, they're unruly, they act out of character. And then we're looking at, okay, maybe it is not the society alone. Maybe it is the parent. Or how they say that charity begins at home. The family is the first school of learning. So we believe that, okay, probably it is the parent. Now we're also looking at the fact that these children grows up and then they get to school, they get influenced by friends and they start acting out of character, out of the normal thing which they were trained on. Our first question is going to how mommy. From a marital perspective, moralists insist that parents ought to be responsible for the training of their children by teaching them the acceptable societal values devoid of insolence. Are we not going to say that, the Bible said something that honor your father and your mother so that your days can be long on earth? But then, should we honor our father and our parents at the expense of our happiness? We're looking at this from the perspective of your parents want you to marry someone and you're not happy with this person. You don't love the person as such. I can say in the past, our parents in the past do stuff like this, whereby two fathers would just tell themselves, I want my son to marry your daughter. I feel if they marry each other, our bond as friends would get deeper. Would be able to share more things. Now we're moving from friends to family. Now those children we're talking about do not even love each other. They might not even have this feelings of, I want to be married to this person. They don't see their future with this person. But because the scripture said, honor your father and your mother, they want to honor them at the expense of their happiness. Mark, in your own perspective, would you say this is wrong? Do you agree to this?
My dear, when it comes to the issue of marriage, it's a matter of the heart. That's two people coming together is a purely matter of the heart issue. Yes, the marriage institution is an institution ordained by God. And because it's ordained by God, it should be respected. It should be feared. It should be hallowed. But when you now talk about two people coming together, it should be two people of like minds. What does the Bible say? The Bible says, and I want to believe in some other books of the other religion, they say the same thing. The Bible says that two don't work together unless they are in agreement.
Yeah.
So when you now talk about the issue of honor, the Bible says honor your father and mother so that it may be well with you, your length of days and all of that. Very good. There's nothing wrong with that. Look at this from that perspective. First and foremost, there's nothing as permanent as change. Over the years, over the decades, things have changed. We've moved from some stages of life, revolution, up to the present period that we are, the revolution of civilization and a lot of it. We are talking about digital, God knows what, everywhere. So now, if you now look at it from the perspective of what used to happen in ancient times, two families together, they'll come close, they have children. Yes, that's what used to be. But in the present day, under the present day dispensation and time, that aspect of marriage arrangements is quite faulty. So it's a pity that religion, in most cases, the Bible has been quoted out of context. When you now say honor your father and your mother, it still stands very strong, but it depends on the perspective and the subject matter that you are talking about. On this very subject matter you're talking about now, times, evolution have overtaken that type of arrangements, because the Bible, as I said earlier, says two don't work together unless they are in agreement. You cannot just say, because my father and this family, my family and the family of the other guy, they were doing things together so that as you are growing up, no, you're different individuals. And if, as the two families have been friendly, your chemistry still gel, the chemistry of the children, well and good. But if the chemistries don't gel anymore, each person will have their own life partners as God has created and put somewhere. So that ancient arrangement, I think, stands faulted under the present civilization and dispensation.
All right, Ma. Thank you very much, Ma. But I would say that even this present age, there is something that people do called arranged marriage.
Yes.
Might not be from families. Probably they could just tell the children, while you were younger, there's this, you were betrothed to someone. There are still some states that still practice this, whereby a child that they just gave birth to now has already been betrothed to a man.
Where they do this money bride of a thing.
All right, children. So it means that in some states, they still do these things.
Yes.
Immediately, they are up to age, say about 14 years. These people are not even up to 18. 10 years, 14 years, they tell them, you've been betrothed to this person, and they get married to those people. And it still happens here in Nigeria. It still happens up till date. Might not be as rampant, but it still happens. Now, in that kind of situation, a child growing up at that age does not even have the right to say, I don't want to do this. This does not make me happy. It is when they grow up that they now realize that, I'm not so comfortable with this kind of marriage. Or probably they have to grow up to fall in love with that person. But we know that looking at the society, let's put aside the fact that that is their culture, looking at the civilization, we know that this is wrong. What do you think can be done in order to curb these things?
Yes, I agree with you completely that there are still some societies, some cultures, some areas in this our country, Nigeria, that have not even experienced civilization. Not too long ago that coma was discovered, that people were still going naked. I've heard that there are some parts of far northern Cross River I can't remember the exact names of the
Obaliku
area
community.
now. That in fact the women have different languages that they are speaking, the men have different languages, and at some point before they will get what you are saying is still very real. Now, how can the society, how can the people, how can that very society, that culture come out of those kind of practices? It behoves on the governments. There's a lot of selfishness when we look at the political arena in the society. They will come saying, talking about one thing, and even some of the governors, some of the officials in that state who have an idea of what obtains the type of life pattern, the culture still being practiced in all those farther hinterland. They will not take their campaign of civilization and liberation into that area because it's not comfortable for them. So it is actually the government, before total civilization will penetrate into the hinterland to deliver people from this type of thing that we are talking about now, is the government that should spearhead. Then the people will follow because they will have the resources, both the financial resources, the material resources, and even the human resources. It is those who know, who have been exposed to civilization, that will not take the message of liberation, of civilization, and light into the hidden parts of those countries. Is the government that should do that.
All right, thank you very much. Our next question is directed to Dr. Samuel Ogunjobi. Now, as a father and a lecturer, who do you think should be held responsible now in the formative year of the child, factoring the fact that there are influencing factors in the society? We have the social media platform, we have your neighbors, we have people living around you.
Thank you for that question, but I feel that this question is very broad, and that is because the moment you bring in the social media aspect now, it's very broad. There's currently a research talking about parents spending a lot of time on their social media platform. I hope you understand that the home is where the child forms, takes in their first step, the first things, the things they know about the society before even heading to the society that you and I are talking about.
Yeah.
The reason is this: when the child sees the parent, the father or the mother spending most of their time from morning till night on social media, what do you expect from that child? Now, when you take a child to school and the child comes back home, back then, if I can remember correctly, when you're back from school, you're washing the plate or doing every other chore. The next thing you hear from the mother is, have you done your assignment? Either the father or the mother help you with the assignment, teach you something before you start. They tell you to watch movie. You must have done the basic things, the basic requirements. Fast forward to now, where everybody is hooked to the phone. You come back, the first thing the child wants to do is find out what is happening on the social media. And parents these days don't see anything wrong in that. I'm not saying that it is bad. I'm only saying that parents need to work on themselves, on how they manage their time, their focus, before teaching a child where it should put his own focus as well. Because when it is wrong from the parent, it will also be wrong from the child. And children don't really have much problems. They only try to imitate what they see because they learn faster than the adults. So I feel that education starts first from the home, how the parents, treat everything around them, and children also take after their parents. Although there are many instances that even when a child is not well taught at home, the child will be taught outside the home. But there's always a saying that we learn from people's mistake, but the mistake is not supposed to be that of the child. It's not necessarily supposed to be that of the child. The child can learn from other person's mistakes, but not necessarily that of the child. But then here we are. Revolution is also an issue that we need to look at closely, and how we manage revolution is also one thing. We are in a particular age, the way we segmented Gen Z. Okay, we are currently in the Gen Z, and we're going towards and now we are going towards the Gen Alpha now. And in fact, I'm not sure we are going towards it. They are already here. It is just that we are yet to acknowledge that they are here. The Gen Alpha is here already, okay? A new revolution, totally. And you see these people, we are not ready for what is yet to come, especially now that you can't cope the kind of information that a child can be exposed to with the little time they spend on social media. Fast forward to when they go back to school, where you are not even there to teach them what to look out for, what to dismiss. The information overload is always too much for these children to handle, so they process it without guidance. This is basically basically the major issue, because when the parents are unable to handle what revolution is, then you don't expect the parent to also teach the child based on experiences they've had in the past. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think one other problem is coupled with the fact that I think I heard one of the, is it the co-host now, talking about facing one or two things in Nigeria. Well, the the current economic situation in Nigeria is also a big issue for parents, because back then you have a mother to look after the child, teach the child what is right, tell the child the ways to go before taking the child to church if you are a religious person. Fast forward to now, where the mother and the father needs to work to work hard. Don't let me just use the word work now. To work hard to provide for that child. In doing so, this parent also, time they're supposed to spend with their child is now much more lesser, and giving that particular time to working hard and making a lot of money to make ends meet. So there are a lot of factors that is actually affecting a child's development.
All right, sir. So are you trying to say that the advent of social media is affecting the effort of parents in training their child?
The advent of social media has compounded the problems parents are facing in taking care of the child. Because while social media can be a tool for empowerment, it can also be a tool for destruction. As an adult, your mind, basically, what you feed your mind is who you are. Now imagine a child growing up and accepting every form of information that comes from the social media. What do you expect? So basically, back then, we assumed that when a child goes to school, the teachers will teach a child what is right from what is wrong. The first teacher now after the parent is social media, not the teachers in school.
Thank you very much, sir.
True. So, Dr. Olumide, as a parent and a lecturer, what can you say about parents projecting their lives on their kids? Because we know that many parents, probably when they were young, they wanted to be a medical doctor or an engineer, but because of one or two reasons, they were unable to achieve their goal, and they decide to put it on the shoulders of their children. Okay, what can you say about this?
Okay, thank you for the question. I'm also not going to, after saying this, I'm also not going to share the information with my parents. So I'm going to answer your question. One thing is that back then, parents derive joy and satisfaction from their children having large, accumulating certificates and having large titles to their names, like calling their child doctors, lawyer, nurses, engineers, all those names and all that. If you come from a family, for example, where the father is a professor, basically the man will also want you to be a professor like he is, because he believes that the professor is the greatest achievement there is at that time. The issue is not parent projecting their self to their child. The problem you are failing to look at is at their own particular time, what was reigning then, what was happening then, because you cannot give a child what you don't have. That is where the problem is. So these parents, during their time, it was education that was selling at the time. What they used to send that child to school, it was that education or whatever it is that they do at that particular time that put food on their table, help them to buy cars, give themselves names and prestige among their friends. Now, when you have a child, you want your child to be like you. The Bible says that a good father is one that leaves inheritance for the child. Now, talking about this child, the inheritance here is giving the child the best education. That is the problem. But the major problem now is that over time, these parents now forget to understand that these children are now in a particular generation where they can choose for themselves. That is where the issue is. A parent is supposed to guide. A parent is not to forcefully tell a child to do this or to do that, take a particular role, because at the end of the day, I myself am a good example. Education has helped me to where I am right now, but I would not say that lecturing is my number one first pick in my journey in life. It has never been my calling, but my dad likes this ideology of being a professor. So I told my dad that, okay, I have satisfied you enough, and now it is time to satisfy myself, and which is why I've been able to start my own journey, and I'm enjoying it. Education is not about the four walls of a university anymore. Anybody can be educated even without going to to school now these
yes,
days.
definitely, yes.
It's so funny because sometimes when you look at you read some news online, you see a child of 21 years old become a professor outside the country. Then you wonder, is it that the child didn't go to crèche or kindergarten? Those kind of things. You see children now becoming great without having to use the certificate they work so hard for in school. But then we can't still rule out the basic, which is that education brought them to where they are right now. So any form of education is important, but parents need to understand that education is not only in the university or the four walls of a school.
Okay, then when you are forced to do a particular thing from your parents as a child, how then do you now try to manage it for you not to be rebellious, for you not to go away from their own opinion, just as you said, because you cannot expect me to put my destiny on hold just to satisfy my parents.
Looking at the fact that you spent years in school to become something, and
Just
then
for
you're
your
after
father.
the school, you're like, okay, so this certificate is for you.
You can
I
feel
now want
it.
to start what I want to do. During
this
that time that I'm
economic
fulfilling your dreams, why don't I do mine? Why don't you allow me just do what I want to do instead of fulfilling your dreams?
Yes. How do you say no without being unfilial?
Exactly.
Okay, I would say that for me, I was lucky because what I studied in school has always been in line with what I always wanted to become.
Okay.
I studied mass communication, and before I finished in school, I was already into media, music, acting. It was still in line with mass com, so I'm not losing out. But it is not always the same for some
For everybody.
children out there. For everybody, for example, my junior brother studied civil engineering, and to date, the guy already said, I am never going to use this certificate
Practice.
because this is not my dream.
So
I hope you
then-
get my point.
Yes,
Now,
how
this
then?
he eventually transitioned into tech and he's doing fine. And I know of a lot more people that have transitioned from the traditional education that I was imposed on them by their parents and just left it. But the truth is this, I don't know how best to answer the question of not being rebellious
Mrs. Sonia will answer that for us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the question is, as a child, how do you tell your parents, no, I don't want to do this you want me to do? I don't want to spend 4 years in school, wasting my time in school when I'm supposed to be achieving my dreams. I think last week I talked about a classmate of mine who was in science class, and she's a good artist. Like when it comes to drawing, this girl is top notch. As of this moment, she's a fashion designer, which means the drawing thing would help now. Yeah, she's still creative. She's still creative. But now, for a child whose dream and aspiration is different entirely from what the parents want,
Inspire them to be.
what can you say about this? Should the child still continue with the dreams, spend 4 years or 5 years or 6 years in school trying to achieve the parents' dream when they can say no and focus on their dream? But then saying no means you're being rude.
rebellious.
You're being rebellious. This is
yeah.
not what I want you to do. This is what I want you to do. How can this situation be contained?
I cannot hold my dreams just for
Just
me.
to fulfill your dream.
Is the act of selfishness on the part of the parent. Because if the parents have the interest and the growth, career growth of the child at heart, they should leave that child to do and then monitor the progress of that child. Yes, you are the guardian, you sponsor, you are the financier of that child and everything. But it doesn't make you a sole decider of that child's
Destiny.
career, because the child will go into what he or she is naturally gifted in. There is this opinion that I hold. If you do what you are gifted in, what is your natural calling, you will do less work. But if you dabble into that which is not your natural calling, you have to do extra work by getting to know, by getting to understand, by getting to fit in, and all the lots of it. So personally, parents that will always say a child should do this is what I want, I think is purely an act of selfishness. So there are some points, some children, in order to obey, not to be rebellious, I heard that word from you guys there, in order not to be rebellious, we'll go ahead and do that, and then after that, we'll still go back to what he or she has as a natural calling.
All right.
Meanwhile, time would have been spent.
So on to the next question. This question is also directed to the both of you. It's about a child that eavesdropped, or probably she didn't plan to. She heard her father's friend telling her father that if not because you had that child, you would have become someone better. He's a basketball player and he could have achieved more because he had a promising future. The girlfriend got pregnant. He had to put aside his dreams because he believes that his family is his home ground. So now, because the child heard what the father said, she hated the father so much. There was this anger towards her father. She doesn't even want to be in the same space with him. She hated everything he does. Now, the question is, coming from a self-denial point of view, there are parents out there that feels like it is because I conceived you, that was why I couldn't achieve my dream. I could have been someone better. I could have traveled the world. Like we were talking about the responsibility of a child coming in. How do parents balance discipline and emotional understanding? Now, you want to discipline the child, but also take note that the pain and the anger in your heart towards that child can also influence what you call discipline. How do parents balance this emotional understanding and discipline so as not to be solely punitive but also corrective? Dr. Olumide, can you answer that question first?
Okay, I don't have more on this issue because I feel that the other speaker would have so much to say. But I'm going to say just a few things. First of all, marriage is for people that have healed. There is need for you to heal before going to marriage. If you have any issue, there's no need for you to get married. In fact, there's even a place in the Bible that says that if you are not married and want to stay unmarried. It is better to stay unmarried than get married and you're taking out your aggression on a child. That is one. Secondly, I think a lot of people forget that when they are married, you have a goal before getting married. So just because you are married does not mean you should stop pursuing your goals, okay? And one of the issues a lot of people face is the type of person they get married. Say, for example, you are into acting, you get married to someone who doesn't so much love acting, so you have to put your goals, your dreams on hold, and you go married to the person because you love the person. You make sacrifices, which is okay. But you know that because they are married, this person might not take out this anger on the partner, but take it out on the child. So there are a lot of dimensions to how to look at these things. But I would still say that it is not all the time we figure it out before marriage. I'm not even sure anybody figures it out before marriage, okay?
Yeah.
But I feel that there are some basic things that one needs to understand and that you have a goal before you go married. And just because you're married doesn't mean that you should put it on hold. And there is need for you to heal before getting married. You know, marriage is not for the weak, honestly. And it's not for someone that doesn't have mind carry on. Back then, this particular thing you're talking about, I can remember, when we were growing up, it was kind of a little bit harsh and all that.
Okay.
I didn't know his story until I found out that he doesn't have a father figure. So he grew up with his mother and he grew up on the street. No, he didn't react to me as a child anyway, but he reacted as a circumstance of his own childhood. A lot of things can actually happen. So the fact that he's married did not change who he was and who he has become. That doesn't mean that my dad is very good, very good, basically. But I'm just telling you that, I'm just telling you that there are a lot of circumstances, there are a lot of broken people before they even got into marriage. There are a lot of dreams that already been shattered, or they are not even making way before they got married. And when they got married, they will transfer that same aggression to the child. Anything can happen. That is why I said that you need to make up your mind. You need to be mature at heart before getting married. That is one. Two, it is not compulsory for you to get married. This ideology of everybody getting married, it is not compulsory. Because if you read your Bible very well, the Bible only says that the Bible condemns adultery. But the Bible also said that if you are not married, stay unmarried. And staying unmarried here does not mean that it is a commandment that you should not get married. It is also because of these little things. Because eventually when you are married and you don't train your child well, this child will become a problem to the society you are trying to bring a solution to. So it's better you just stay unmarried.
Thank you very much, sir. Mrs. Odiawa, please, what can you say about this, ma?
I totally disagree with that. Because if you have your vision, you have your focus, and you know what you are gifted in, the arrival of a child accidentally should not stop you from pursuing and achieving your goal. In the first place, she was not the woman that was carrying the baby for 9 months. It was after the baby had arrived that maybe some expectations, responsibilities that you have to do. But under that circumstance, if you were still going for your basketball practice, the woman that was nursing the baby wouldn't have carried the baby to come and stay with you and say you should not jump up and catch your ball. So on that, I totally disagree. Yes, it is said, and in most of the counseling sessions that I take part in, we always tell the people that marriage is not for boys. Marriage is not for girls. If you are not mature in mind, you cannot go into marriage because a lot is involved. When I started talking earlier, yes, the marriage institution is ordained by God. I listened to the other speaker, Dr. Olumide. He said, yes, the Bible even said that if you don't have to marry, just stay. The Bible has not said marry or don't marry. But when it comes to a stage that if you are called into the ministry and it will disturb you and you have the gift of celibacy, if you cannot say, most of people that cannot control themselves, marry. That's what Paul says in the book of Corinthians. He said, get married. That's why they even advise that if, unfortunately, in course of the marriage, maybe there's a death or something, and the woman is there or the man is there, if you're still young and you want to marry, marry, in order not to fall into the lust and adultery and the lot of it. But having said all of that, you now have children in the marriage and now say, oh, before this child that has made me not to achieve my purpose and my goal is a big lie from the pit of hell. No child would disturb you like that man that say, and to the extent that animosity developed between him and the child, and he didn't know. That child had now grown up with some kind of fixation of dislike. This is what my father feels about me. This is not when in fact to me, that father and the other friend were just gisting and chatting the gist of goons of friends. Unfortunately, the child was overhearing.
Yeah.
It is not that child, that girl, that disturbed him from achieving his goal. It must have been his lack of focus. I always say, should not disturb whatever a woman wants to do, because your program, your blueprint of what you be has already been put in place by God, in as much as you don't derail that.
Okay, thank you. That was well explained from Mrs. Odiawa.
Okay.
Now, let me ask Dr. Olumide this from what we have been saying, parents and schools and other institutions involved. Do you think that school have make a difference, or there are things that school have, like, they have failed to do? Because now we see that cultism is starting from school. You will see a child are respectful, well-mannered and cultured from home, but when they step into the high institution, are you getting me, Olaiton?
Yeah, even secondary school.
Secondary school.
Yeah.
And other maybe miscreant attitude and all of that. You see it in the school premises.
Yeah,
and all of that.
and then they pick that up when they get to the university.
And maybe when they are even going back home or for holidays, they bring all
this
holier
humility.
than thou
I'm still that
attitude.
child you trained well.
Now I want to ask, where have the school sector or system failed?
Okay, I'm going to say that this question you asked is like saying that Nigeria is bad, so Tinubu is responsible for all. Whereas the decadence in the country is in every aspect, is in every sector. You see, when it comes to the school, you can't always blame the school for the actions of every child in that school.
Okay.
Every child in a particular school comes from different backgrounds. And before they come to school that brings all of them together, they are already exposed to some other things in the society, which they bring
Exhibiting the school
to
premises.
that same school. And when they bring it there, children maybe have issues with intimidation, low self-esteem, many and all those things begin to find solace in what their friends preach to them. But then that doesn't mean that they don't do a good job in checkmating many of the vices in the school, things that are happening in the school, within the school, and beyond that.
Okay.
However, I feel that schools have been doing a good job over time. But the society itself is also a problem, because when a society is failing, one sector of the society cannot help that society make changes. The changes we are looking for must be done in every sector of the society. Then secondly, you asked the question of, I think you asked the question of what the school has been teaching, where the school has failed to teach students.
Yeah.
One way the schools generally right now have failed to teach students is children, is to equip them for the future, what they will meet in the future. And that is because for a very long time till now, schools are still teaching, outdated curriculum that does not apply in the current world. So these children are not well equipped. When they come out to, the to the job field looking for jobs, you find out that their 4 years, 5 years, 6 years in school amounts to nothing because they are not well prepared. So that is one way I know that school has failed, that Nigerian institution has failed, and it's still failing at that. So it's a continuous thing. That's why I said it's still failing. That is one way I know that they have failed. But in terms of cultism and all that, it is not just the school job. Cultism is not only in school. In fact, you can't even say cultism started from school. In fact, in my area here, you can find a child that has joined cultism even before getting admission into the school. Will you blame that on?
But when statistics have to take place, cultism starts from school. And most of them are humbly and well cultured.
And that's
aside that, actually, I don't know. We watch movies. We hear stories, like real life stories of what happened in both secondary schools and tertiary institutions. You see that most staff, like lecturers, teachers, and all of that, they make use of these children to do one or two
evil
deeds.
acts,
Evil acts. They use them like a court is now. Okay, because of power, in the quest of power and all of that, they make use of these children to achieve what they want to achieve in schools. So if such thing is happening in school, if such thing is happening in school, so how then can the school collaborate or even instill discipline in these children?
I think what you're also trying to say is that how can parents and the school now come together, collaborate in order to create an environment with strong values for children.
Let me use my case as a case study.
Okay.
When I was in secondary school, there are sometimes my mother have to just hang around my school premises for her to know when I enter the school premises, when I come out. Understand? These are kind of ways. Are there other ways that you think that parents and so-called schools and other institutions can collaborate
to create a good environment and also
society?
Looking at the fact that she said some lecturers make use of these students to achieve their evil aims too. So in this kind of situation, what can be done?
Okay, one way I feel that parents can look out for their child and to ensure that these children don't join bad gangs in school is, first of all, you have to be forthcoming with checking the kind of friends that their child make in school. I don't know if it happened to you. Back then, when my parents won't come, they don't tell me they are coming. They just come.
Yeah,
they don't tell me they are coming. They just come. And when they come, they don't come to look for me per se. They want to know if it is who is this DJ, who is this Tokwe, how is Tokwe doing. You'll be so surprised that some of the parents will even go as far as not checking their child result, but check Tokwe and Tunde's result to be very sure that these two friends are even doing well.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is still the job of the parents basically to check. Lecturers also making use of students to carry out some of their bad ideas and many of these things. I would like to say that the social media is a friend to many of these parents now, because when you go on Twitter and tweet someone's name that this person is particularly doing something to your child, a lot of people will take it up from there. And I feel that the reason why we have not been able to find solution to it is because in many of these issues have not been going online. Many people have not been talking about how many of these things have been affecting their children. Okay, many people are not speaking out on these issues. And also, even if you want to involve the police, in current Nigeria, the police is not your friend. So we still come down to talking about how the society is built, the decadence in the society, in the social system of Nigeria, so to say. Sorry to say that in Nigeria, the bad is more reverent than the good.
Yes,
we
sir.
like the bad things than the good things.
things.
Okay, say for example, I recently heard of something in my area about a 19-year-old boy that built a mansion. The boy is dead. And when the boy built the mansion and he called for housewarming, it will shock you that elderly people were there and nobody was questioning where he got the money from. So are you getting my point
Yes,
now? So
we're
we are all
getting it.
contributors to many of these things that is happening. So we are not speaking out. Nobody is checkmating these things that are actually happening. So I think that is why it's becoming worse over time.
All right. Thank you, sir.
So, Mrs. Odiawa, this for you. Why growing up, parents
Yes, ma'am.
beat their kids with all sorts of things to create fear in them and also make sure that they do the right thing? Do you think this method they use is it necessary? Because we know that beating a child will still make them do what they want to do. It will even make them more stubborn. Like me, I hate beating. And you see some parents, they tend to use these belts. They might even choke up at you, use this turning stick, belt, wires, and all of that to hit their child. What do you think about this practice?
Okay. The practice of beating the child for corrective purpose, I support 100%. Even though I'm not a fan, I don't beat. I wasn't beating my children. Before a situation would deteriorate to beating, it means that child has defied the idea of listening and adhering to simple instruction. Because the Bible says the rod is meant for the back of fools. And if a child has not started displaying some attitude that will beget beating, there should be no need for beating. And now when they now talk about beating, when the Bible says don't spare the rod, discipline the child, it didn't talk about, would I use the local parlance, all those wire, the stick, the this, the that. It turns out not to be corrective anymore. But get a fine cane, and when you're beating the child for the purpose of correction, please, as a parent, you watch out for the part of the body that stick or that cane will strike. The buttock has some more flesh. The thigh has some more flesh. Even the palms, whatever number of strokes you want to give. If that child is meant, you have, as a parent, you brought that child up to be disciplined. In fact, after receiving those strokes, in those areas that he or she cannot be hurt, he will not behave again. But that you carry popo, you carry wire, you carry this, and then you start following up a child on the head. I mean, all the nerve that takes blood to the head, in case it hurts, then the child will start bleeding. And you say you're a parent that you're correcting. You are punishing instead of correct, which is not acceptable. And that is not the type of discipline with the rod that we know. Before I would say I would have spoken with you with my mouth, with my eyes. My husband, people have the saying. He said, before you will slap the ear, you would have talked to it first. Before it will get to the stage of you having to beat a child, it means you must have spoken. And a child that you have well brought up and groomed, that is not mixing, not catching everything that is happening in the society among the peer group, would have listened to you. So the beating will not turn to be animalistic.
All right.
Beating in the first place is not a case.
Okay.
If God sanctions it, it is not a case. It's a manner and approach how you go about it that makes the whole difference.
All right, ma. But I think recently the government prohibited this hack. Parents schools should not beat students when they do something wrong.
As I said, it boils down to how you go about the beating.
Okay.
That you beat a child and blood starts spilling, that is not the corrective. That becomes an abuse and no more for correction. When you now say you carry wire, you carry stick, are you trying to kill a snake? And in the name of beating a child to correct? No, now. I have a cane in the house. Immediately some of the children around me, if you do that thing again, immediately I just go, I bring it out. Everybody will sit up. I will return my cane. I don't have to bring wire. I don't have to bring rubber or belt to design the body of the child. Then tomorrow you regret it. When the child turns to see, say, my mother or my father did this to me. That memory will linger throughout life. We should be mature.
Thank you.
Parents should be mature.
Thank you very much, ma. So this last question is going to Dr. Olumide. With this Gen Z thing that you talked about, we know that you're a millennial, you're a Gen Z, and also, like you said, the Gen Alpha, where is already coming into place. So what lending tongue will you give to keen hearers regarding the topic, the parental effect on established institution? You understand the Gen Z presently, you're also a part of the millennial. So I think you can balance the whole situation. So regarding this topic, the parental effect on established institutions such as marriage and schools, what lending tongue would you give? Like, what advice can you give to our listener?
Okay, I think one thing I would tell to pick one or two things from everything being said, I would say that for you to be a good parent in this generation, you need to cultivate the habit of patience.
Okay.
When you are not patient enough, you need to be patient, not just with the children, with yourself. Because when you want to get the whole result from a child in one day, you eventually manipulate the child and you just punish the child for nothing, because the child is also trying to learn the rope, and a child who is still trying to learn the rope and you beat the child off the rope, then you have a problem on your end. So you need to be patient enough with these children. Secondly, parents should understand that children, basically when they are growing up, can be manipulative. Manipulative in the sense that they want something. They don't know what is right from wrong. And the reason why a parent knows what is right from wrong is because of experience. And these children don't have such experience. That is why they are still navigating. So there's need for this when you see that the child is trying to be manipulative, it is better to correct the child in love, or else you build fear in that child. And if you check our society today, fearful children are the best liars. Because when you have a child that is not bold, you have a child that is timid. And when they are timid, just to get out of a particular situation, they begin to tell lies. And when they start telling lies, it becomes an habit. And when they form an habit for so long, you can't take it away from them again. So you need to be careful. And Madam talked about, you mentioned some verses in the Bible, and there's something I would like to add, that when you have a child and your child is leaving home in the morning, there is one less harmful thing that parents back then do, and it works magic. When your child is leaving home, try as much as possible to say good things about the child. You don't have to just make them stay for so long. Like, for example, Tinuke, you are blessed today. Tinuke, you are a good child. Using good words on this child, it builds their confidence. Because when this child gets to school and meet a lot of their peers, and their peers try to make them feel intimidated, you will be surprised to see a child tell a classmate that, oh, I am not stupid because my mother said I am a good child.
Yeah.
That is confidence. But when you don't speak good words into the life of your child, and you don't let them hear those good words from you, you see this Gen Z and Gen Alpha, we show you how, how things play out in their mind. So, and lastly, you need to put yourself in the shoes of your child. For you to train a child very well, you need to come down to their level. You need to remove, there are some times you need to be a parent to them, and there are some times you need to be a friend to them. Sometimes your child is not telling you something is happening to you, something is happening to them, simply because they want you to be a parent. They already understand that you are their parent, but so many a times they need a friend. And what do parents do? Parents correct. What do friends do? Friends listen. So you need to balance being a parent and understand that there is a thin gap between being a parent and being a friend. So you need to know how to navigate the two when the time comes. Because if you decide to just be a parent to a child all through their life, they will only know you as their parent, and they will have a best friend outside your home. And when they have a best friend outside your home, you will only become a parent they run to when they need money. But when they need good advice about something that will change their life, they go to their friend outside.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for what you just said. And I can also remember the last week I also talked about this, like parents should try and be friends with their children. That is where communication comes in. And I cited my sister as an example, that she told me herself, like, I'm your friend. You can talk to me about anything. And I can say I can be so vulnerable with her. And when it's time for her to be that sister, she's always that sister. The way she would even talk, whatever she says I should do at that time, I'm doing it. So I think I've been able to accept the fact that she's my sister and she can also be my friend. Like, we're cool. We can be friends. We can talk about everything and anything. Thank you very much, Dr. Olumide Ogunjobi and Mrs. Ekaite Odewa, for joining us on the show today. We're really glad to have you. Thank you for giving us this insightful and exciting, educating content that you just spilled out today. We're really grateful. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And to to my amazing ladies, thank you guys for joining me on the show. And I love you so much.
Oh, love you too.
All right, and
to our
Toby,
great listeners.
Toby, thank you for joining us in the studio. And to our listener, thank you for always tuning in. Like I said earlier, you can follow us on all our social media platforms, say on Instagram, on
Spotify,
LinkedIn,
TikTok.
on Spotify, on TikTok. We're everywhere at VG Media. Thank you guys for always being there for us. We love you so much. And on to the next, do have a great weekend.